Dark Pillar. Chaos in action. Take it away, Joel.
Always a tough act to follow. I'm Joel Federman. I'm director of the Transformative Social Change specialization. I want to welcome you again to this amazing event and thank Monisha and Anthony in particular for organizing it from the beginning and conceiving it and bringing it up out of an earlier seminar that we did talking about these very same issues of how do we reclaim public space. And so this is really an exciting evolution of our process and a manifestation of something that we talked about on a theoretical level. The great civil rights leader Bayard Rustin once said, "We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers." Angelic troublemakers. And as I look around, as I looked around earlier, I see just that group. So welcome. I think you've come to the right place, and we'll make good use of you. What I want to do here is to connect creativity to transformative social change. And I want to introduce 3 ideas that I hope are going to help frame or maybe help unframe our thinking in the way that we work and play together in this environment and in the environment around us, which I hope we will be entering at the end of this evening. The first of those ideas has to do with public space. As I mentioned, this workshop really builds from an earlier seminar on the idea of reclaiming public space. And truth be told, what better public space to reclaim than a Westin hotel? We're in the middle of what could be called an ideal typical example of what the French anthropologist Marc Augé called a non-place. And a non-place is defined essentially as a place that that doesn't hold enough authenticity to even be genuinely understood as a place. And so we're going to be in this place, but the Westin is a non-place that we at Saybrook have periodically manifested ourselves and transformed into an authentic place. And that's what we're going to do even with intention this evening. And in particular, in this butterfly effect, as you've already seen with the dance in the main ballroom, we are going to reclaim some of the common space. And in particular, we want to identify some very particular liberatable space, which is the corridor outside the main ballroom, which, as you see here, this picture was taken last night, is completely blank and completely inauthentic and meaningless. We are going to through our creative efforts give it meaning, and that's going to be one of our primary jobs. But I want to set up the process of that by really thinking through what that means to reclaim authentic space and to create authentic space. And probably the greatest global symbol for liberated space is Tahrir Square in Egypt. And it's not a coincidence that the word Tahrir literally means liberation. And in 2001, so it's really a liberation square, is the correct labeling of it. In 2001, the Egyptian people, who had been repressed for decades, took over the central intersection of their capital city and made it into a common space. They turned it into a place where people were housed. You can see the tents. They were fed. They were able to share their dreams. They played music, and they shared their dreams about the kind of country that they wanted to create and in which they wanted to live. As we know, this is a dream in the making. There's been a lot of pushback and revolutions. From every revolution that has ever existed in the history of humanity has been a process that's taken some time. But there's always some particular climactic moments in those processes that we really recognize and label. 1776, the January Revolution in Egypt, tonight at Saybrook, where we transformed the process of what the institution and the meeting was. And the Arab Spring was really a harbinger of all sorts of events that came before it and that have emerged from it. The Occupy movement, directly inspired by Tahrir Square. The Green Revolution in Iran, which happened previous to that. The Spanish Los Indignados, the Zapatistas in Mexico. The Idle No More movement in Canada, which has spread well beyond Canada because it's an indigenous movement. The Brazilian Spring of 2013, and I should add 2014. The Taksim Square movement in Turkey, which is receiving incredible pushback right now by the government in Turkey. And the Ferguson U.S., I say Ferguson U.S., that really began in Ferguson. It really began in Florida, then it moved to Ferguson, but Ferguson was really the flowering of it, and now we see it all over the country, what is now called the Black Lives Matter movement. And that movement has even spread to its wings to the very young people in Kenya. Just this last week, young people, students in the primary school, these are elementary school students in the Langata Road Primary School in Nairobi, Kenya, there was a land grab of their soccer field right next to the school, and it was going to be used for development. And they decided to protest it. And they created a protest saying land grabbing is terror against children, and they created a slogan and a name for themselves called Occupied Playground. And they protested and they tore down the wall that was created by the developers in the process. This is just a few days ago.
Yeah.
And as a result, the government tear gassed them. Tear gassed young children. So when we talk about this I Can't Breathe movement, I have to say, as a quick aside, I was tear gassed in Berkeley for the first time in my life. I always thought, when I was a little kid, after all the demonstrations I've been in, when I was a little kid, I always thought tear gas, we had this thing called smoke bombs. And I always thought tear gas was just like a bunch of smoke bombs that were thrown around. Tear gas is really chemical warfare. And I always thought that people who would say it's chemical warfare were using hyperbole. Tear gas actually stains and infects your skin. It closes off your lungs. And so to do that to little children and to do that to anybody, tear gas should be banned throughout the world. But to do that to little children, this then became a hashtag that was spread around the world because people recognized the horror of what that meant to tear gas young children. But it's happening across the world in every place where there's protest. And we can do a deep analysis of why that's occurring, but we don't have time for that, and that's why we have a program called Transformative Social Change. But I want to say that the second creative way to express your ideas that I want to focus on, that I think is particularly effective, is to take existing symbols that have powerful meaning in a culture and to transform or transmute those symbols into new forms that have new meaning. And the appropriation of symbols is a very time-honored tradition in protest. And a classic example of that is when John F. Kennedy was killed in 1963, and a cartoonist took the Lincoln Memorial and he made Lincoln weep with tears on the days after the Kennedy assassination. That was a transmutation of a symbol. I just want to go back to that. The transformation of symbols, icons, and myths is a powerful method of creating transformative social change. Another image is the Statue of Liberty, a central image. You know, Martin Luther King used all the images of the founders of this country in his speeches, and I talked about this earlier, where he gave his final speech, and he said that, you know, like anybody, I would like to live
A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
He was invoking this mythic image, and he was bringing it into the present and making it present, and showing the true meaning of it. And that is what I think is the true meaning of why we call him a prophet. And the same for the people who are taking these images, such as the Statue of Liberty, and transmuting it into, as it is in Ferguson, where they're taking away protesters who are demonstrating, using their constitutional rights for freedom of assembly and being taken away, is a fundamental abrogation of this notion of liberty that the Constitution upholds. Another image that shows that same thing was right after the Supreme Court defined marriage as it's an evolving process of showing that Lady Liberty can kiss Lady Justice, and that marriage equality can be the law of the land. Another image just this last week, the protesters, you may know that John Crawford was a young black man who went into a Walmart and took out a toy gun and was testing it out, and was shot by the Walmart police and killed. And so the protesters have now created a series of warning labels saying persons of color picking up this object may be subject to serious injury or death at the hands of Walmart and police. And they're sticking them, and part of the protest is to take these images and to stick them onto toy guns in Walmarts and in other stores throughout the country. And of course, Martin Luther King, just this last Monday in Oakland, showed a statue of Martin Luther King with his hands up in the Hands Up, Don't Shoot Michael Brown protest. And this, as you can see in the background, is Fruitvale Station, where Oscar Grant was shot. This was the beginning of the protest in Oakland. So the last suggestion I want to make is about what I would want to call open source politics. And that's creating open-ended opportunities for people to insert their own meaning. This builds on the last concept. To insert their own meaning in a potentially infinite variety of ways into the forms that we create. And I want to give a few examples of that. One example is at the first-year anniversary of the Occupy demonstration, some protesters got together in front of a bank in San Francisco, and they created the outlines of a sign about democracy in protest of the banks. But it was just the outlines that they created, and then they had a swarm of people, just like us, come to that demonstration, and they swarmed around, and they gave them the paint, they gave them the equipment, just like we're about to do with you. They gave them the equipment to fill in the blanks of that outline. So that is a truly transformative form of protest. It's not saying we're giving you the symbol, we're giving you the emblem that you can fill in and co-create the symbol of your own transformation. And this was an absolutely wonderful event, and I won't show you the whole thing, but you get the visual idea of the energy and the kids, the adults, everyone coming together to create that. And what they created was a democracy, not debt. And if you could see around the edges, there were all sorts of different symbols that weren't part of the original symbol. And that's part of open source creative change. And of course, I'll skip this one, the National Protester Demand Map just came out in the last week, of protesters being able to post their own demands and have it been put up on a national map, so that people who claim that there are no protester demands can see that there are a multiplicity of demands throughout the country. And then finally, and most importantly, and this connects to what we're about to do, is hashtag a protest. Hashtag protest is a perfect form of open source protest, where in this instance is Layla Alcorn, the young transgender woman who killed herself, committed suicide right around Christmas, who was oppressed in a variety of ways. And she said in her epitaph, in her final statement, she said, "Only when transgender people, if you want to honor my name, fix society." And fix society and Layla Alcorn became hashtags that went around the world. And this was a map of the Twitter trends that happened after Je suis Charlie, all over the world. This is a perfect example of what I mean by open source. There was an image that said Je suis Charlie or Layla Alcorn, but everyone attached their own meaning to it. And so it's a truly democratic form of protest. And this, I think, is really what Anthony and Monisha are trying to say when they dress up and act out the butterfly effect.
Act up! Black Lives Matter!
Right now! And so this is what we're doing right now. And so what I want to offer to you is one such open source opportunity, which comes from the Lenin Wall in Hong Kong. There have been previous Lenin Walls. The Lenin Wall was created in Hong Kong. This is a picture in Hong Kong. You probably know that there's been a major battle between the government of China and the citizens of Hong Kong to keep the basic elements of the democracy. And this statue was created. It was part of the umbrella movement, and the little pieces of it are ways of showing all of the little post-it notes that were put together in the Lenin Wall. And in the background there, you can see that whole set of stairs is filled with post-it notes of people's ideas for change and people's ideas for what they believe democracy and social justice could be. And so there's been this battle back and forth. The government said then, oh no graffiti. They took down all the posters, no post, no bills. And people then recreated the democracy wall. And the government took it down again, and then people created human Lenin walls, where they were able to march around and create that. And so this is the flowering of the butterfly effect through the democracy wall. And so what I want to suggest is that we create a Saybrook Lenin, in the honoring of Martin Luther King Week, a Saybrook Lenin King wall. We are going to create that wall right outside in that hallway, that void space that I was just showing you earlier, and at the top of it we'll put this sign, which says that, and it'll ask us just two questions: what do we dream as people at Saybrook, and how can we act? How can we make our dreams real? How can we make what is it we're here for? What are we dreaming? And how can we make those dreams real in the world? And we can bring together all of these ideas that we're talking about in this seminar. And I'm also going to put out, between now and when we leave the room, at the end of this seminar, we're going to leave the room and go over and start creating, using these and a bunch of Sharpies, the Saybrook Lenin Wall. I'm going to create a hashtag that just says Saybrook Lenin, it just says this: Saybrook Lenin King Wall. What do we dream? How can we act? And anyone who wants to use that hashtag through the rest of the week can say what you want. So the Lenin Wall will be virtual and it will be physical. And so that's my invitation for you to participate in the butterfly effect.
Awesome.